All right, welcome to the Brevard County Charter Review Commission. If Melissa, will you please call the roll? That'd be great. No rush.
Here.
Here.
Marcia Newell.
Here.
Mkhitaryan.
Here.
Murray Rogerson.
Here.
Blaise Tredis.
Here.
Bob White.
Here.
Tom Jenkins. Here. Cole Oliver.
Here.
Sue Schmidt.
Here.
Jordan Chandler.
Here.
Vic Luther.
Here.
Dave Newman.
Here.
Matt Nye.
Here.
And Gabriel Jenkins. Kirsten.
All right, thank you so much. For the first order of business, everyone should have a copy of our last meeting, the approval of minutes. Do I hear a yay on that?
So move.
All right, without objections to that, adopted. And the fiscal analysis direction, that should also be in your packets. As you remember from last time, we had some questions about that, and there are 3 different vendors currently with the county that we can call on if we need to in this process. So I want to make sure that everyone had that information. With that, are there any questions about that particular piece on item D on our agenda? All right, so everyone has that information. So what I'd like to do today is to get into just a couple of the proposals. As you know from our last meeting, we did not have a public meeting, in my opinion, but we'd simply kind of brought up the issue. This will be the first official public meeting on our 2 proposals before us, one being the charter cap. The second one I will not count as our first meeting today, but there can be some discussion today about the recall for school board members. And the reason for that, again, is it's a proposal that we're just getting introduced to today, and I want to make sure that, as we've talked about in each of our meetings, that there's an abundance of caution in the idea, let's make sure there's a lot of transparency so that anything we propose to bring to the county commissioners is done in a very thorough way, so that whether it be today or in future meetings, that more and more folks who will have an interest on either one of the proposals or others that come before us can have a full vetting of the issue before we make a final vote. So this will be the first hearing we're having on the first of the issues, which is brought forth by Blaise Tredis, which is, of course, on the charter cap. And everyone should have before them the information about that charter cap. I think the staff did a nice job of getting kind of the history on that. And as Mr. Fisher was kind enough to ask the good question of, what would the impact be had this been in place in years past? That information is also in your packet, so you understand the fiscal impact that would have if the number was reset. So with that, what I'd like to do is a couple things. We have some folks in the audience. I would imagine, Melissa, are these folks all for obviously the charter cap issue, or is it for the school board issue as well?
There is a mixture, most for the school board.
Okay.
Speak at public comment.
Okay, great. And as I mentioned, the school board issue will be, their first official meeting will be next time for our 3 count. But the charter cap, this will be the first official public meeting on it. So why don't we handle the charter cap first? And if you could just raise your hand if you're here for the charter cap. Okay, we have 1 person. Anyone else? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll allocate 3 minutes on the issue for Mr. Ellis, who is here, to make a brief presentation on his, and then from there, anyone on the board can ask a question of Mr. Ellis, and then once from there, we'll just have a discussion, and then once that's complete, we'll move forward with the other proposals. So, Mr. Ellis, welcome.
Welcome. In a way, you're to blame for this. Because the original charter cap came through with Senator Herodopoulos up in Tallahassee. It was passed, it was approved, and I think it's very clear. The original cap, I believe, is very clear that when you have some kind of a declared crisis, you can enact that tax for a single year. Single year means a single year. If you wish to enact that again, you must vote it again. I know that Mr. Tredis has got it on here again. I understand why, because our first one seems to be tied up in court. A brief history on that. When that came up, I had asked to go for declaratory judgment with the courts to avoid a lot of legal issues, because simply declaratory judgment, we prepare our case, you prepare your case, judge makes a decision. Once the judge has a decision, then you've got something to work with. The county refused to go the deck, and they instead chose to knock us out on a standing issue. That has now been removed by the 5th DCA. The issue is back in the courts here in Brevard. And for Mr. Gugelman's memo and the numbers that you've seen, that is totally a self-inflicted wound by the county. I have no sympathy for any of those numbers. This could have all been resolved when it first came up without going to court. The other issue is if Mr. Tredis's issue gets on the ballot and if it passes, it is not retroactive. However, our court decision could be retroactive, which would be unfortunate for the county. But again, they dug their own hole by not taking the simple solution first. So as far as costs associated with the new amendment, there are none. It would be moving forward, not moving backward.
All right, great. Before we go to the sponsor of it, are there questions for Mr. Ellis?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Nick, go ahead.
Scott, can you explain a little bit more when you say, the simple solution, how you define that?
Certainly, is that the board came through 2019 and said we have a crisis and we want to bust the cap. And they did, and they got about $900,000 out of it. We had told the board that's fine, and what you did was legal. You had the supermajority. When you roll into 2020, if you want to keep that money, you have to make that vote and finding again. You can't keep that money as part of your rollback, because that money is only for a single year. Therefore, we had to wait, and when the preliminary budget was submitted in 2020, which included that money again, with no finding of critical need, we told the board what we would do, and then we proceeded to head for the courts. The simple thing, again, was declaratory judgment, because it doesn't cost anything. Your lawyer prepares a brief, our lawyer prepares a brief, they argue in front of the judge finds one way or the other. Instead, the county went into a protracted legal battle over the issue, which I thought was fairly amazing, since they said they had a slam dunk issue on their side. I don't know why you would not go for the declaratory judgment if you feel you have a slam dunk issue on your side. So that's where we're at now. I truthfully, I missed the one in 2017. That is my error. In 2016, the board had done the same thing. That's my fault. I missed it. I was tied up with things 16 and 17. I should have done the same thing. But that doesn't mean that I was not going to do it in 20. They were very, very openly told about it. The board's attitude was, well, we just don't care. So here we are.
Additional questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. Great to see you. Okay. At this point, I'm gonna allow Mr. Tredis to kind of, again, reiterate the issue, and like we might do in my old days in the legislature, we'll let him kind of handle the questions, and if we could just get my attention for those who want to ask questions, that'd be great. So, Blaise, go ahead.
Thank you. It was in 2008 that a local law was passed which allowed this charter cap to be placed on the 2008 ballot. It was passed by over 73% of the voters in November and became part of the charter. I think I agree with what Scott Ellis has said. I want to point out that I especially agree with the fact that my proposal, if it were adopted and voted by the electorate, would be prospective. It would not be retroactive. And I think it's a little bit misleading when you look at these numbers that were done by the county, because they seem to me that they suggest that $18 million or $16 million, whatever the total amount is, would somehow be owed back, or taxpayers would be on the hook for it, which is not true. If this proposal were voted into the charter in November, it would be prospective, so it wouldn't affect anything but the future. So the way I see it is these excess taxation that has occurred since 2017 and on, that's locked in, and it's not going to be affected by the voters approving my proposal. So that's important to know. I think the most important thing is just the wording of the charter itself when you consider whether or not it's just to be only 1 year of excess taxation above the charter cap. And I'll just read a little bit. The Board of County Commissioners may impose an ad valorem tax for county, municipal, or district purposes at a rate which exceeds the limitations in paragraphs A and B. That's a charter cap. If a supermajority of the board concurs in the finding that such an excess is necessary because of emergency or critical need, and here's the most important part in my opinion, quote, "The finding shall set forth the ultimate facts upon which it is based and shall be valid for a single budget year," end quote. That is the critical language. It's clear that can only be for 1 year, excess taxation. The language is perfectly clear. And if anyone on this commission were to disagree with me, I'd like you to explain to me what that language means if that's not what it means. So that's the critical language. I also would like to say that, from the comments at the last commission meeting, it seems like some people don't like this because it reduces taxation. And they think that it would affect, in a particular case of the sheriff. And I'd like to point out that Mr. Fisher was a county commissioner starting, I think, in 2008, 2009. Those were the biggest budget reductions probably seen in Brevard County in decades, if not ever, because that's when the Great Recession hit. And, I haven't gone back in the records to look at this, but my recollection is that the county commission at that time, including Mr. Fisher, realized that public safety is the government's #1 priority. And although the FTEs, the full-time positions of Brevard government, were slashed to 2,000 levels, that the sheriff's office was held harmless, if not maybe slightly increased during those worst of years. So the law enforcement budget can only be reduced if the Board of County Commissioners lets it be reduced, okay? And it's a very important point to make. And then finally, I'd just like to point out that I think these numbers are wrong from the county who did this memorandum, because they multiplied these. First of all, it seems like, again, that this is a sum number that supposedly would be owed back, which would not be the case. But also, these numbers were multiplied by 5 years, when I think it should be 4 years, because it says that in September of 2016, the Board of County Commissioners exceeded the charter cap. Well, if they voted in September 23rd, 2016, that means the charter cap was exceeded starting with the year 2017, 2018. So there's no that excess taxation during that year because of critical need is fine. It was only through 4 years since then that it should have been rolled back. 2018-19, 2019-20, 2021, 21-22. So all of these numbers are multiplied by 5 when I submit it should have been 4. But even using the highest numbers, I want to just emphasize just what a really small amount of the entire county budget we're talking about. The budget is now $1,628,207,528. The $942,309 excess taxation that went to the law enforcement MSTU above the charter cap, that $942,000 plus accounts for only 6/100ths of the county's budget. For the general fund for the years, using the county's numbers in this chart or the memo, that's $2,459,651. That amounts to 15/100ths of 1% of the budget. For road and bridge, 495,836, that accounts for 3/100ths of the budget of the county. You add those up, we're talking about less than 1/4 of 1% is the excess taxation. So for people to say that we can't live with this, we need tax money, I submit that's wrong. And I also, we're the only county in Florida that has this charter cap. Some people say that's a bad thing. I say that's a very good thing, because look at the quality of life we have here in Brevard County with the charter cap. We have, I think, excellent schools. The roads, are probably as good as any county with 600,000 people. Law enforcement, particularly the sheriff, since 2012, the crime rate has been reduced 43.7%. So this was all done with the charter cap in place. So for people who say that we have to have more taxpayer money, I say, you know what, we should be the model for the rest of the state, and other counties really should be doing what we're doing here in Brevard County. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there questions?
I don't have any questions. I have a statement.
Okay, sure. Let's stay with questions for now and before we get into the different statements. Are there questions for the sponsor of the proposal? Okay, we'll go into statements then. Ms. Schmidt?
Oh, we had great statements last time. I would just like to address, having been on the county commission in my lifetime, at the last meeting, I discussed the history of the 2019-20 increase that the county commission put on for the MSTU for the sheriff. And I also discussed the history that the reason that that MSTU exists today, and it's for road patrol, is because many, many years ago, the cities in Brevard County got together and said, we all have our own police departments, and you, the county, are taking money out of the general fund to subsidize or to pay for the sheriff and the road deputies. And it was going to go to court, and there was a resolution to create the MSTUs for the road patrol for the sheriff's department. And it was very clear at that point that no money, no funds for the road patrol, which is for the unincorporated area in Brevard County, could be used from general fund, and only the MSTU for road patrol. So at that point, when the sheriff went to the county commission for the 1920 budget, we all know what was going on with the pandemic and a lot of other things, and the sheriff had a critical need. And the commission at that time made the decision to give the sheriff an increase for those deputies that were on the road patrol for the unincorporated area, because there also was a state law that was passed because of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School episode that took place in the Safety Act by the state legislature, and he had to supply more school deputies, which are road patrol, and also for equipment and vehicle costs. If what Blaze is saying would have been in existence the next year in the budget, that increase would have had to come off. It could not be taken out of the general fund. Now, could the county commission have gone into another fund at that point, or for roads that we all travel on, or for your parks where your kids go to play Little League? Sure, they could. He made a statement that we have great schools. The county commission does not pay for the schools in Brevard County. That is the school board. They have nothing to do with the school board and the schools. Blaze was correct that this was adopted by the public in 2008. But in 13 years, the county commission, and they haven't all been the same commissioners, there have been many different commissioners, have only done an act of critical need twice in the whole 13 years. I don't think any county commissioner, past, present, or future, is going to go, gee, we have all this opportunity, we can just go out and tax everybody. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen, if for no other reason than politically. But let's say the commissioners have some sense about them, and they also live in Brevard. They don't want any more taxes either. I believe that what is in the charter right now today should stay the way it is and not be changed, period.
Thank you. Others who might have comments on this? Mr. Moore? Oh, Mr. Jenkins.
I I think we're discussing a major policy decision which has long-term consequences to the county. In order for the county commission to avoid advertising a tax increase, they have to reduce the millage to the rolled back rate, which in effect takes into consideration all of the reassessments that occur on individuals' existing property. I know that many years when I was serving as county manager, there were many years where we had no new construction. And while there may be some very significant new construction going on today to generate revenue, long-term, there is no guarantee that that new construction revenue will continue to be there. I can tell you that for many years, it was not there, and it was extremely challenging to try to balance a budget when you didn't have sufficient revenue. The last point I would make is that these costs, as been outlined, they all appear to be reoccurring in nature. And in fact, in the case of the salaries, for example, for the deputy sheriffs or adding deputy sheriffs, those are even compounded. So you've got the cost from the prior year plus whatever cost of living adjustments you have to make for the subsequent year. So I think that those are all considerations that need to be taken into account.
Mr. Chair, can I speak?
I mean, I think everyone's making statements, and we'll get back to you. Other comments? Mr. Moore, did you want to? No? Anybody else? Mr. Nye?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, I'm in support of this proposal, and what I find so interesting is we're speaking of this like it's a new thing. It's in the charter. I am with Mr. Tredis's evaluation of the language. That seems very unambiguous to me. And quite frankly, even if we did have to give back the money, which I agree if Mr. Tredis is saying his proposal is going forward, you know, the county was warned, you know, that this was, that there's a legal challenge. They, like you say, as Mr. Ellis explained, didn't go through the declaratory judgment process. So, you know, I'm real big on accountability, and we see around the world right now in all of these different positions, there seems to be no accountability. And, you know, the voters voted for this once. It's a shame that we have to, like, you know, doubly clarify it again now, so many years later. But it's really fascinating to me how we're treating this like it's a new thing. The voters already approved this, and we shouldn't even be here if the county hadn't broken the rules. So, thank you.
All right, other comments? All right, before we go back to Mr. Tredis, just to be clear, last time the reason we put this number in, I think you might be right, could be 4 years instead of 5, is we wanted to get a perspective on the impact that it had at that point, so we could have at least a number to work by. If people want to look at that more closely, maybe they can work with Melissa to make sure these numbers are accurate, but that was the intention of it. And I think we're all in agreement that this would not be retroactive. Does everyone agree that this will be prospective, just so everyone's clear, not only to our group, but of course, folks who have 2 more opportunities to talk about this in future meetings. So just to be clear, this is not retroactive, this will be prospective, and the numbers we can look at to see if, again, those people have concerns about it, we can get that exact number, because that's our goal here, to make a good decision based on numbers that everyone thinks is accurate. Any other comments before I go back to the sponsor? Travis, you're welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that, you know, it's been said that it seemed that this was all about deputies or increasing pay of deputies in 2019. If you go to the resolution itself, the resolution for funding of critical needs law enforcement municipal services taxing unit, it's page after page of everything that the sheriff would like added to his department, like hundreds of patrol cars worth $16 million and tasers worth 400 something thousand dollars, and repair of buildings at $500,000. Deputies are mentioned, but there's not even a dollar figure in the resolution about what dollar number is needed for deputies. So I would encourage you to actually read the resolution to see what was asked for. And I think, you know, this material stuff is a perfect example, like the cars, the tasers, other material things. That's a really good example of a good use for exceeding the charter cap, because it's not recurring costs, it's one time, and it's paid for by a one-year increase. And I think that's what the sheriff was really asking for. And you won't find, I don't think, any numbers for pay increases for deputies in the resolution. So I'd encourage you to study that. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we've concluded the discussion today on our charter cap. This marks our first meeting. There'll be 2 additional meetings. For those people who are watching on TV or in person, you'll have 2 additional opportunities to come and make your piece and give your opinion. We'll work on the exact numbers, as we mentioned before, looking back to understand the true impact on it. And again, for those people who are interested, there'll be 2 more meetings before we make a vote on this and send it over to the county commission. I guess I don't think we have an exact answer, but as we look at these different proposals, we might want, as a group, decide if we want to take kind of like a super day of voting, or if we just want to say on the 3rd reading that we want to have a vote on that day, or we want to have that all at once at the end of our charter, so to speak, to get this work done. So that might be something we think about in the next meeting. So we all have a kind of a super vote day as opposed to taking one at a time, because obviously this is the first agenda item we have, and I think there'll still be more as we're seeing more and more emails and more interest come about as we move forward. So mark this down as meeting number 1, 2 more to go, and we'll get into a second issue today, which is meeting number 0. And that is on the recall of school board members. This was brought to us. I think everyone saw the email coming through where folks has an interest on recalling school board members. There was a brief discussion in our last meeting about the desire to match what is allowed right now on other elected officials and to apply to the school board members. And so that is a proposal put forth. Mr. Tredis, are you on this one as well?
I am.
Okay, why don't you give a brief explanation? And I know there's some folks who want to come and testify. We'll give each of them a couple minutes to kind of let their opinion be known. And if we want to discuss it a bit, we can. But this, again, this is number 0 because there's not been a public announcement. This will be out there today, though there was some discussion about that in general. But I think that public disclosure is a better thing, and this will be number 0. So, Mr. Tredis, you're welcome.
Thank you. The title is Proposal to Amend Brevard County Charter to Add Recall Elections of School Board Members. There is currently in Florida no way to recall a school board member. They finish out their term no matter what, no matter how much people disagree with them or how much they would like them out of office. There is a Florida statute 100.361, which has been in place for 48 years, which provides for the recall election of city council, mayors, and county commissioners. So it's just very remarkable that the city of Indy Atlantic with 3,000 people can recall their city council, but a school district of over 120,000 people in Brevard County has no way to recall a school board member. So that was a big part of the reason why I made this proposal. But the specific reason, well, first of all, let me say that this proposal tracks very closely the wording of section 100.361. The procedure's already been in place for 47 years. There's really no reason to deviate from it much at all, and I did not, except really in just one or a couple of places. The first one is the statute gives 7 reasons for a recall: malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty, drunkenness, incompetence, permanent inability to perform official duties, and conviction of a felony involving moral turpitude. I've reduced that to 2, malfeasance, which I define as doing something not allowed by law. And the second one is not more than 3 votes by the school board member on a motion or motions made at a school board meeting or meetings, whether the meetings were regular, special, emergency. In the petition, the words of the motion or motions made at the school board meeting or meeting shall be stated word for word as is reasonably determinable. And so what this does, it really allows a very specific reason for citizens to petition for the removal of school board members, and that's how they vote on policy matters. And you may say, well, that's what elections are for. That's when you vote people out of office. I generally agree with that. But the problem is when we have school board members making such important decisions about the health and mental well-being of our children, 4 years is too long to wait to make that change. And because of staggered elections, that's how long people now have to wait across Florida. If this proposal passes, then that will not be the case. About within 160 to 190 days under this proposal, the petitions could be gathered, votes held, and a school board member could be recalled. And of course, like many things in the last few years, everyone's attention has been focused by the pandemic, and that's basically the genesis of this proposal. More particularly, in August, the Brevard County School Board voted to require school children and everyone in a school to wear a face mask. And that rule, that order was only undone because we have Governor Ron DeSantis as governor. And he called the legislature into session and passed a law which prohibited school boards from ordering children to wear school masks. It's only then that the mandatory school face mask order in Brevard County schools was undone. So you may think that, well, then that there's no problem. Well, there is a problem. I'm thinking about the future, because if Governor DeSantis were not in office, but instead the other candidate on the other side who was running against him, Andrew Gillum, if he had won and if he were in office, he would have vetoed that bill in November. And right now, if that had happened, Brevard County would be facing indefinite forced masking of children in schools. So you have to think about not what's taking place, which is a very good status quo only because of the elected officials at the state level, but what could happen in years ahead. So that's the basis of it. And, you know, I think that this will not be used very often at all, because I don't think school board members really make very many controversial decisions. I certainly don't think it would be made for the regular decisions, such as, you know, what vendor is going to get the cafeteria contract, or do we buy school buses this year or next year. These routine decisions are not going to be the basis for any recall petitions, but what will be are the most important matters that affect children, parents, grandparents, even employers, as we saw with the pandemic, with quarantines, keeping people out of work because of their children. So I think it'll only be an issue for, you know, controversial, very important cultural issues, like policy on, say, transgender students in schools. I think that is definitely something that could happen in Brevard County, because Brevard County Public School System has a transgender written policy which allows children at every age, K through 12, to use the shower, locker room, bathroom of what they, quote, identify, end quote, with, meaning boys can go into girls' bathrooms, showers, and locker rooms, and vice versa. The policy also requires teachers to use the pronoun that the 8-year-old wants to be used. So if Johnny wants to be called her, then that's what the policy is. The teachers have to call Johnny her. So it also goes into other really important matters, and I think that could be the basis for a recall election. And I think it's needed. I think it's very much needed. And I don't know if this is out of order, Mr. Chair, but I want to make a motion regarding my proposal right now.
I think we should wait until next time, because we've not had a public opportunity yet. We're going to have some comments today, but we'll have 3 opportunities after this.
It's only a motion to have our legal counsel review whether it's consistent with the Constitution.
I think he's going to comment on that a bit today, and but yeah, that'd be fine after we're concluding. If you wanted to do a motion at the end, we can do that. Mr. Goodwin, do you have an opinion? I know you have something on term limits today. Do you want to add to the question asked by Mr. Tredis?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. However, I do have a memo that will probably be issued by the time of the next meeting.
I'll open up to the board. Would people like to see a motion on this? If you would, say yay.
Next meeting.
Yay. Yay.
Okay, let's go ahead and make that motion, please.
Motion for Charter Review Commission Attorney Paul Gugelman to write a legal memorandum in which he gives his legal opinion on whether Proposal 2, recall election of school board members, embraces one subject only and is consistent with the Florida Constitution, general law, and the Brevard County Home Rule Charter.
Second the motion.
All right, any objection?
I second it.
All right, without any objection, show that adopted, and we will get that motion in action, and Mr. Goodwin will go to work on that. Thank you. All right, we have some public comment on the issue. What I'd like to do, I see a lot of folks here, if we can limit your comments to 2 minutes, that'd be great. And then at the conclusion of those 2 minutes, if anyone on the board has questions for the person coming to testify, feel free to do so. So we're just going to do it in the order that we received the cards. So Catherine Delaney, if you would please come forward and just state your name before you get started, and we'll give you 2 minutes, and hopefully there'll be some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Delaney. Good afternoon, committee members. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to serve our community. Today I'm here in regard to the proposed addition of Section 8.2 recall election of school board members. All elected officials should be subject to recall by their constituency under the letter of the law. This is a very neutral request, as all school board members would be held to the same standard regardless of their party affiliation or ideology. Recall laws are very specific, so you cannot recall someone simply because you don't like them or their ideals. There has to be specific cause. I request that this committee moves forward with this proposal when the time comes and gives we the people the power to hold our elected officials accountable. Simply to be conscious of your time, I agreed to speak for myself and a bunch of these people behind me today, along with hundreds of people who couldn't make it today to this meeting. Thank you all again for your service.
Thanks, Ms. Delaney. Any questions for Ms. Delaney? Thanks again for coming in. Nice to see you. All right, we have Nick.
Tombolides. Tombolides.
Tombolides? Oh, great. It's probably a Greek name. All right. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. I'm actually here to talk about the term limits issue, not the recall. So is that okay? Is this the right time for that, or should I come back?
Why don't you come back at the end if you
Okay.
don't mind? I
Sounds
appreciate
good.
that. Thank you. We'll put your card aside here. Okay, next we have Cheryl. We gave you all the names. Okay. Thanks for being here. If you can just give your name and we'll go from there.
You can say, watch your house key real fast, and that's it, Wojciechowski.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dr. Cheryl Wojcichowski. I'm from Indy Atlantic, that tiny little town that you just spoke about. And I'll keep it short. We live in a democracy. The hallmark of our democracy is elections. I am sure that everyone in this room has an elected official, either present or past, that they really didn't like, and they didn't like what they did. And the thing to do in this country, in most places, is gather your resources, talk to your constituents, talk to your community, and then vote again, participate in voting. Our school board members really have a thankless task. They work extremely hard. The past couple years, their meetings and their offices has just become this hotbed of controversy. Let them do their jobs. One pet issue should not negate the term of someone who's serving their community. I also worry that if this door is opened for school board members, then they're going to spend so much of their time and the community's money on defending their positions instead of doing their jobs. Thank you very much for your service, your time, and attention.
Thank you very much. Are there questions?
I got a question.
Mr. White for a question.
Why should a school board member be treated any differently than a county commissioner or a city council person or a mayor or any of the other plethora of elected officials that are subject to recall?
I'm not a lawyer, but I think as school board member, they have a very unique role. It's not the same, and it hasn't been law, it hasn't been a problem up until now. I don't know the rationale as to why it's true for those other people, but it hasn't been necessary up until now. And I believe that one pet issue shouldn't be enough to change this.
So you think then that a school board member somehow serves in some kind of altruistic function, altruistic position as opposed to a county commissioner, given that a school board, schools typically, their budget dwarfs the budget of the county. So I'm just trying to understand how it is that they should be treated uniquely as opposed to any other elected
Well,
official.
what other, can a governor be recalled? Who else can?
State legislators, county commissioners,
So are
city
you saying
council
that
people.
school board members are the only elected officials that cannot be recalled?
As of right now, statutorily,
Well, why was that?
it's just always been that way. There's legislation right now to provide for, it hasn't passed, but there is legislation that would provide for them to be able to be
Has it worked
recalled.
well in other communities that have had school board members recalled?
I don't think that's, I don't think that's an issue.
How
I
much
think-
of the budget has been spent?
I don't think that's an
having them
issue either.
defending their-
At issue is, you made the statement that you think school board members are unique. And I just want you to tell me, what is it about a school board member that makes them unique as opposed to any other elected official? They're getting paid a salary, just like other elected officials are getting paid. They make political decisions all the time, just like other elected officials make. And they have a huge responsibility to the general public.
I'm not sure all their decisions are political.
I didn't say all of them. I said they make political
But
decisions.
wouldn't that make them different if not all of their decisions are political?
Not
They're
every
serving a
decision by a
different type
county
of
commissioner is
community.
political.
They're serving a smaller proportion of the community.
You're trying to split hairs here. Not every decision of
I
a
believe
county
you are as
commissioner
well.
is political.
Let's just.
I think we're
let's,
good now.
Go with, so you don't talk over each other.
Let's just
do one at
agree
a
to
time.
disagree.
That's fine with me.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for coming in. Thank you. All right, we have Elizabeth Mkhitaryan. Thanks for coming in.
Hi. Good afternoon. Out of respect to me, because I've been an educator in Brevard for almost 30 years, now retired, I'm not going to stick with your time limit. It wasn't even advertised as such, so I will read as quickly as I possibly can. My name is Liz Mkhitaryan. I'm from Titusville. I am an educator and advocate for children and communities. I know several of the members of this body. I worked personally with some of you when a past school board member pushed a criminally questionable $8 million software deal while closing our children's public schools. Some of you even helped me support a candidate trying to defeat that same incumbent school board member. So I am experienced in calling out. Our school board members have done so and will continue to do so in the future. You now are serving on this committee with the responsibility to offer your expertise and research findings to the County Commission. Chair Haradopoulos, in the minutes of, I think it was last meeting, said, "We vote with as much information as possible." So please ask yourselves, why is this movement being approached now? Why is this on your agenda of items for you to address right now? I want to provide some information. State Representative Randall Fine has publicly supported the request that you are presenting today, and it may even have been initiated through his actions and his connection to Moms for Liberty, and perhaps even through members sitting here this afternoon. Public servants must not be allowed to influence other committees, boards, to facilitate their own personal revenge agenda. Please do not think that this charter change request is anything more than that at this time. What you are hearing and potentially taking part in is a retaliation against the Brevard Public School District, a group who claim to be simply a bunch of really involved
Ms.
local
Mkhitaryan,
parents.
Real quick, I'm going to ask you a question and let you continue, but what we're doing is today's a courtesy.
Yes.
It was brought up today.
Yes.
And we're going to have 3 more meetings after this.
Yes, sir.
If you want to share this statement with everyone, you can email it and we can read it
Okay.
as well. That'd be great. And just, you're also clear, the way that we've all operated, and you can watch all the videos from the past, is whoever brought up a proposal, it's the great thing about Florida, you can bring up anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that some folks have the idea this contrived or something, but all we're doing up here, we're all volunteers, and we're up here just, whatever proposal comes in, we're going to address.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something we're trying to do. So if you wouldn't mind wrap up maybe a minute or so.
Okay.
And then if you could share with Melissa, we could share with the board, that would be great. And we'll read the statement in full, but I want to be really respectful of
Sure.
everyone else as well. So,
No,
okay?
I respect that.
Thank you so much.
So basically, as you will read in my further statements that I will email out, I am requesting that you make a motion today to table this issue so that there is no question of impropriety, that there is no question of this being related to a retaliation issue that one of your actual sitting members has been behind as well. I'm asking you to not get rid of the idea, because especially Mr. White just had some really good points, I believe. But I'm questioning the timing, and I'm questioning this board that is representative of all the people in our county of taking action on this right now. So it needs further review. I'll end by stating that the irony is not lost on me that Moms for Liberty presented this request to you on January 6th. Please reconsider and review my request.
Thank you so
all.
much.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, wait. Let's just, again, and in this dialogue, let's be really respectful on both sides. Make sure the question is asked, and then I don't want to have to say back and forth. So let's start with Mr. Nye. I believe his hand is up first. And again, this is the 0 meeting, okay? We have 3 more. And just to be clear, Ms. Mkhitaryan, is that whatever proposal comes forward, for or against, we're going to bring it up. That's the cool thing about this group. So I know you've asked to be taken away, but our whole point is to be as open as possible, so there's another venue for elected officials. Remember, we don't have the final say. This will go to the county commissioner to
Correct.
decide whether they want to move forward with it. So
Well, I do address some of the costs involved in that.
sure,
And all
that's-
of that.
That's
in
very
my
helpful. Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
documents
Mr. Nye, for a question.
So I just want to set the record straight. At the last meeting, or actually prior to the last meeting, I was approached at one of our Republican Liberty Caucus meetings by some people that were asking about how they could recall a school board member. And so at the last Charter Review Commission, I said, hey, I'll sponsor that. As it happens, Blaze ended up drawing it up, beat me to the punch. But I don't know where you're getting this whole Randy Fine thing, but it had nothing to do with Randy Fine. And so I think you're just, it's insulting, quite frankly, to act like, I'm the one that brought it up at the last meeting, that I'm some sort of puppet for Randy Fine. That's doesn't sit well with me. So, I agree with everything Mr. White said earlier. Why are school board officials the only ones that aren't subject to recall? I quite frankly think it was an oversight. It needs to be corrected. And if the people in this room really genuinely believe in democracy and, effective representation, I honestly don't see how you can be opposed. The fact that this particular issue, because people don't like the way a particular school board member voting on something, it could have just as easily gone the other way. It could have been the shoe on the other foot. So I don't think the issue is relevant. The fact is there's a deficiency in the system. It's the only position you can't recall, to Mr. Tredis's point earlier, where in some cases time is of the essence and we can't wait 4 years. So I want to set the record straight, because I honestly, again, insulted, offended that, people asked me about this, and I said, yes, absolutely, I would be, as Mr. Herodopoulos said, happy to look into that, and support the proposal or sponsor the proposal, so.
Thank you. I believe, Mr. White, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance to clarify your remarks, because it sounded to me like you were impugning the integrity of Mr. Tredis by suggesting that he was here serving as a lackey for Randy Fine. Was that your intention? Because that's what it sounded like.
No, I am drawing attention to this multi-member board that Mr. Fine has been very public with this as his wish.
Well, I'm no big fan
And
of Randy Fine, but you
That's
suggested
fine.
right there, you
Yes.
suggested,
Yes.
without, I don't think there's anybody could have interpreted it any other way, that it was only because of his influence over members of this body that this was even being introduced in the first place. And I don't think for a second that Blaze Tredis would be doing the bidding of Randy Fine. Now, do you want to clarify that? Is that your position or not?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
So-
What my point is that as a member, I can't read your name, I'm sorry, ma'am. You stated before, the county commission has no business dictating to the school board. You were referring a different issue.
Yeah, I did not.
Right.
I did not really say it that way.
Right.
Okay.
I'm paraphrasing, maybe?
I was responding to Mr. Tredis.
Yes. And so what I'm asking for is for you all to dig deep and find out what's actually behind this issue.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tredis.
I'll just state for the record, and if it's a Bible, I'd swear on it, that I never spoke to Randy Fine or anyone else in the world about my proposal. I heard two commentators at the last meeting make the suggestion. From there, this is entirely mine. I spoke to no one. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Riverson.
I would love some clarification. You used the word impropriety. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Perceived impropriety. That's
Could-
what I'm asking, that you rise above that so that there won't be any
Yeah,
questions.
for us to be able to rise,
Like I have.
for us to be able to rise above it, I need to understand what you mean by it. So could you clarify what you're perceiving as
Well,
impropriety for
even
us?
in statements that we've heard today on other issues, they were very politically backed statements, and, you know, talking about mask mandates as part of the push behind this,
Okay.
that's
So
a
you-
politically charged issue.
Okay, so you're
Ms.
saying that the
Riverson,
impropriety
please.
is people stating their opinion? That's your version of impropriety?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay. Impropriety for me would be rule breaking, doing things you're not supposed to do, violating sunshine law. So if any of that, you've heard of that, you've seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
That should be addressed. So that was my hope, is if you've seen any impropriety like that, please let us know so that we can rise above that kind of
Yes,
thing.
ma'am.
But just your statement now of somebody making a statement that seems political to you isn't, while you may not agree with it, doesn't rise to the level of impropriety for me. So is there something impropriety level that you think that we should address?
Well, I mean, to be specific, and I'm just telling you my opinion,
Yeah, absolutely.
this has been a push in our community to recall one of the school board members. I'm not defending her, I'm not saying anything about her, but it was very, very public, and now the item has been brought before you, council members, or committee members, I guess I should say. And I'm just asking you to do the due diligence and make sure that any actions that you do take are above reproach. Because
Absolutely.
right now, it's not above reproach, and I'm not pointing
Could you
fingers.
clarify that? Because you're saying it's not above
I
reproach.
just explained it. This has been a
Let
public
me
push to
interject here. I
recall-
think it'll make it easier.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Again, just to be really clear, whatever proposal comes through, we're going to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular proposal, now we're going to have, in essence, 4 meetings about this.
Right.
So there'll be no rush to judgment. If this becomes a very emotional issue, which it clearly already has,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have 3 bites of the apple after today. And again, I want to make it abundantly clear, I didn't know what to expect in taking this position like we all did. And what's so great about our open sunshine state community, whatever you want to call it, is whoever has a proposal, you're going to have these 15 members take a good look at it, spend at least 3 meetings discussing it, having opportunities from the public to make many comments, some factual, some not, and then move forward. So I think this is a great opportunity to start this discussion. I appreciate it. And if you could share your full comments with Melissa, we will make sure that the entire committee has it. And then I think all those go online anyway, so the whole public can read all about your comments as well. So
I'll
thank
just
you.
end with, I understand your words, and I believe that that should be the process, but you just made a motion to pursue discovery on this point.
And again, but that goes to
So-
the point that you brought up.
Yep.
The way I've always operated and the way that we operate in the state of Florida is everything's transparent. And the more transparency we have, the better. And so the more information we have, and that's been our guiding principle throughout, we want to make informed decisions so that the county commissioners can make an informed decision after we have. So we're going to do that. And anyone in the audience here or watching can send in their comments. And that's the beautiful thing about
Yep.
it. So thanks, Mr. Mkhitaryan.
Thank you
Great to
very
see you.
much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time all.
All right, we have Pamela Castellana. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here this afternoon. I can't think of anything better to do on a gorgeous day. And I'm sure you can't either. Every single thing that the group Moms for Liberty is now using as an excuse to allow for the recall of a school board member was put in place under the 4 years that their founder was on the school board. The same group organized their Recall Jennifer Jenkins group well before masks were on the table, which is Mr. Tredis's reason for using this recall. He keeps using the mask reason. It was in place well before that was an issue. They were then declaring her attire and her manner in addressing the public was a reason to recall her. There was a recall held about the policies that were put in place that these Moms for Liberty people are opposing, and that was on August of 2020 when Jennifer Jenkins won that election. Mr. Tredis's entire proposal is preposterous and based on misrepresentation of the facts of August 2021. I don't know whether out of malice or ignorance, but in either case, I'm appalled that this is the level of incompetence serving to write our county's charter for the next 10 years. The mask policy, as approved by the school board last year, was never indefinite. On October 4th, the Brevard School Board set metrics in place, giving the superintendent the power to rescind the policy when Brevard County's positive case rate reached 50 out of 100,000 cases. That allowance was approved by 3 of the board members, Misty Belford, Cheryl McDougall, and Jennifer Jenkins. That threshold was reached 2 weeks later, and the opt-out was added well in advance of November. But sure, go ahead and add school board to the list of elected officials that can be recalled. I don't have a problem with that. State statute requires evidence of malfeasance. You keep asking what's different. Mr. Tredis is defining it different because his proposal wants to leave room for an unpopular vote as reason enough to recall an elected official. He says that because school board makes health policies, they should be limited. County commissioner has the same power over all of us, yet a vote on policy is not acceptable for reasons of recall. So go ahead. And the next time the county commission votes to lift the spending cap, imposed by Brevard County citizens on the sheriff's budget without ever seeing the line item version, expect a recall effort. The next time a municipality votes to make handing someone a bottle of water through your car window illegal, expect a recall effort. The next time a county commissioner accepts money from a developer the day before approving said developer's project request, expect a recall effort. It's a dangerous game of retaliation politics that our state seems to be reveling in right now, all because of a very loud minority of voters, and in this case, a group whose founder cannot accept her loss.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any
All right.
questions?
Seeing no questions,
Thank you.
we have Sanjay Patel.
My comments were general. You want me to wait or proceed?
Whatever, it's your 2 minutes, so.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. I'm here today for 2 reasons. First of all, to call into question the composition of any committee that includes an individual like Vic Luker. His very presence here calls into question the credentials of the entire body. This is a man who makes public statements daily that are vile, obscene, xenophobic, misogynist, duplicitous, and ridiculous. He uses words to describe local residents
Mr. Patel,
that
I don't think this is to what we're talking about today. Let's talk about this school board issue. This is a
agenda
personal-
items.
Okay.
Well, it's really relevant because it calls into question the folks that are assembled here to make decisions that are really important about our county and the direction of the future of this county. So from my perspective, Brevard deserves better than a few folks that are representing this committee today. More importantly, I'm here to encourage this body to consider bringing real change to Brevard. Consider creating the role of an ombudsman or other protector of the public trust. Think about eliminating the influence of big money, and especially developer money here in Brevard County. Consider amendments to address the critical affordable housing crisis facing our county or the toxic, deadly water in our lagoon. Currently, this body is focused on small issues that don't really matter. I'd urge you to seriously consider the public records of those that are assembled here as part of this committee and to focus your aims on something bigger than retribution for the election of a woman who dared to protect our county's kids in the midst of a pandemic. Thank you.
And just to reiterate, whoever has a proposal can send an email to Melissa, and we will consider every proposal. All right, we have Daniel, looks like Wilhelm from Satellite Beach. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you. It's Wilhelm, but I don't
Okay.
fault you for
Sorry
that.
about that.
I'm not going to need the 2 minutes. I'm going to be very simple with you guys. You notice the shirt I got on? I'm here because you broke something. Well, you haven't quite broke something yet, but you could. Are you familiar with the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? I'll tell you what, if you start to allow recall votes for school board members, for stuff like that, you know who's going to get recalled next? I guarantee you, all the book burners and all the bullies who shut down freedom of speech and cut off the cameras, that's who's going to be up for recall next. That's all I've got to say on the matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Vicky Mpoko. Welcome.
Hello again. My name is Vicky Mpoko. I'm a 22 year Satellite Beach resident, homeowner, taxpayer, and engaged citizens. I'd like to thank all of you, the committee, for the opportunity to speak today concerning the proposed school board recall measure. And it's my understanding that our governor already has the authority to remove a school board member for malfeasance, criminal behavior. Is that true? Okay. This recall effort, to me, appears to be nothing more than grandstanding when those measures and laws are already in place, and political retribution. And I, too, find it especially disturbing that a certain member of this committee has been a vocal proponent and recall of a current school board member. He should recuse himself and abstain from the vote. This recall proposal will do nothing but increase the rancor in our community and waste precious tax dollars. That's all.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Karen Colby.
Hey, y'all, someone left their mask up here. Thank you for your time and all the effort you're putting to this effort. I wanted to put a few misconceptions to bed. First of all, it's not about any one school board member. It's about the policy in general. I don't think that anybody should be immune from being recalled in the state of Florida. I don't think that one particular position, like school board rep, makes that person impervious from removal. I think it is imperative as Americans that we use the Constitution to take care of business. We don't need to wait for Governor DeSantis to see something. When we see a situation developing that was never here before and is all of a sudden becoming untenable for our children, the mental health issues that we face, the retention rates of teachers, the bus driver crisis, the schools that have not been repaired that was said to be repaired, going to be repaired by any sitting board member. It's not one person that any other group is wanting to remove. I'm not speaking for anybody but myself right now. I would remove every single one of them for violating the governor's law. However, 3 of them did. Those are the 3. If this action takes place that we can do, there will be 3 names. It will not be 1. In my opinion, because I have the right to bring this forth just as much as any group does. So working with that group, I can tell you that we will not just be after one person. If the 3 people are going to continue to violate the law in the state of Florida, we will remove them. If anybody that's on the city councils of any Indian Harbor Beach, India Atlantic, yada, yada, they misbehave in a way that takes a set place and turns it into mayhem itself, and refuses to be answerable, they're not the Pope, they can be removed. They're not Supreme Court justices, they can be removed. By being told that they're too old and let's let somebody new in, right? Okay, so nobody on the school board is a Supreme Court justice, nobody on the school board is a Pope, and nobody on the school board, including Dr. Mullins, is extremely safe from removal. If you guys help us to get this on the initiative and the charter so that we can take care of business, I assure you it will apply to anybody and everybody who violates the governor's law. That's the fact. No feelings. Any questions?
Are there any questions? All right, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And there's a mask there, it's nasty.
Okay. Sandra Sullivan. Did you want to speak on this issue? Which issue would you like to speak on?
A couple other charter amendments.
Which ones? Because we already pushed one back on the term limits issue. Did you want to talk on which one?
I apologize for coming in because of the budget meeting. I was going to bring up 2 proposals that I put forward.
Okay, sure. Well, we'll give you 2 minutes in that, and then, of course, I know you've been emailing back and forth, Melissa, so thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores, came here to talk about 2 proposals I put forth. I have attended county commissioner meetings for over 3 years, and I see that we have 3 commissioners who do not regularly attend staff briefings. Many of them do not attend their boards that they sit on, and I think that we could, with a growing Brevard County, that we need at this point a commissioner that does not have a full-time job. So that was one of the proposals I put forth, that moving forward, we look at having commissioners that can dedicate the time, as I think is the issue there. The second one is that in coming to meetings for 3 years and trying to get items on an agenda, there's no formal way to do that. I think it's 3.410, it gives Speak Up Brevard, but it's once a year. So to put in a proposal during the busiest month, I don't know about you guys, but I'm buying presents for my kids and shopping, and I got kids off of school, and it's just an insanely busy time to put something in. It seems appropriate, it should be any time during the year, but also a process to get an agenda item, whether it is defined. You don't want, anybody coming up with anything, and you want a way to qualify them to put something on an agenda. So maybe specified by a way of, say, a number of petitions or some other qualifier as a methodology to be able to have citizen-driven agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you. And to reiterate, Ms. Sullivan, I know you've been working on it, so work with Melissa on those proposals, and we'll, just like everything else, we're going to put everything before the board here. Thanks. All right, we have Joseph Coella. Sorry. Yeah.
It's Chalawa.
Thanks. Welcome.
So my name is Joseph Chalawa, and I'm listening to the opposing arguments, and what I don't think they understand is that it just comes down to the fact that the policies that they were voting on harmed our children. I'm a father of 3. We had a pretty good understanding of the efficacy of masks, the harm that COVID had on children, and yet they still pushed policies despite the governor's orders, despite that it violated our parental rights. So if they don't understand that when a person who's an elected official makes policy that we know is harming our children on a social, emotional, intellectual perspective, and we know it's harming their ability to get a proper education, I don't know what else to say, but I think every elected official should be held accountable, whether you're a school board member or you're a governor. I don't think anyone has special privileges, or we're here to improve people, or elected officials are here to improve people's lives, not to dictate how to live them. And I hope that when you review this, that you support bringing in the school board member as someone who can be recalled, because like I said, nobody should be held, or every person should be held accountable to the same standards that we have across the state. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. We have, Nick, do you want to come up on the term limits issue as well? That'd be great. And then we'll start wrapping up.
Mr. Chairman, could you remind people how frequently this commission meets? Because a couple of people have talked about timing.
I believe every 6 years, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Hello, Nick Tumbelides, Executive Director, U.S. Term Limits, also a 10-year Brevard County resident. I live in District 1. And I reviewed the memo on the legality of county commission term limits, and I noticed there was a big problem there in that your attorney omitted the idea of there being a conflict of interest when a county commission or that county commission's appointees take a look at the idea of term limits. It seems to violate a very basic principle of ethics in law and in government. Because on one hand, you have constituents. County commissioners have a duty to those constituents to discharge their duty. Those commissioners are very, very supportive of the current 8-year term limits law. But on the other hand, if that 8-year term limits law isn't repealed, each county commissioner will lose power, prestige, influence, salary, and health benefits. So there's a very clear conflict of interest. I think even a first-year law student who couldn't see this would probably flunk out of school for not seeing what you guys haven't been able to see yet. And I would tell you that I think the only way that we can objectively look at term limits in this county would be for the people to bring forward an amendment to the charter through a citizen initiative. Because term limits are the most popular issue in America. There's a poll from Scott Rasmussen, 82% of Americans support term limits. That includes 87% of Democrats 83% of Republicans, and 76% of independent voters. The governor has 8-year term limits, the agriculture commissioner has 8-year term limits, attorney general has 8-year term limits, state legislators have 8-year term limits, the president of the United States has an 8-year term limit. So if anyone on the commission or on this panel believes that a local county commissioner in Brevard County, Florida needs more time to learn their job than the leader of the free world, then I would say please resign, because you are in the wrong profession. So please kill this proposal. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Love to take questions.
Any questions?
No.
No, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Okay, we are, that is all. Anyone else wish to speak? Oh, we got one more coming. Thank you so much. Robert Burns. Welcome, Mr. Burns.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Burns. Randy Fine also did not send me. In regards to the recall, I believe that every elected official should have the capacity to be recalled. If the voters put them there, I think the voters should be able to take them away. But unfortunately, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the statute says. It's my understanding that no statewide elected official can be recalled according to the way that our current statute is set up. In addition to what Mr. Tredis said, school board officials. So my question was going to be, does the county have the legal authority to institute this? And I think that's what you talked about at the beginning. We're going to get the attorney to draft a memo. But what I would like to do is solicit that you take it a step further and make a motion to ask the county commission to request an AGO, because I think that this is a statewide issue. It's not going to be unique to Brevard County. This is going to be unique to every chartered county here. So I would like to try to get an AGO, Attorney General opinion on the matter for the entire state, as opposed to, and I'm not doubting the capacity or competence of our legal counsel at all, but I just think that might help put Brevard County on the map in leading this effort statewide. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Please.
It's not a question, but it's a statement that the legal memorandum is something that has to be done before an Attorney General opinion can be sought. And that's one of the reasons that I made the motion for the memorandum, because that's really sort of my thinking on the next step, which is to seek an Attorney General opinion, because this has never been done before. There's not going to be any case law on, even close to the same facts. But still, an Attorney General opinion that specifically addresses this proposal would be very useful to have and very influential, I think. So I just wanted to point that out, that this legal memorandum is a step towards an Attorney General opinion.
Well, that's definitely the difference between a lawyer and a Google lawyer. So thank you for that, Mr. Tredis.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
And, in vein of that question, in part of the legal analysis that we have coming, Mr. Googleman, if we could also get a brief history on what current offices in the state are subject to recall. My understanding from at least the statute, and I'm not saying there's not other stuff out there other than section 100.361, but that only applies to the municipalities and charter counties. So if there's more general law in the statute, I'd like to see it. And second, I'd like to know if this petition or this process moves forward, who pays for the elections? Does that fall on the general burden of the county, and what the cost of special elections are?
I think that's a great motion. If you can add that as well, that'd be fantastic.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Yes, Mr. Jenkins, for a question.
Could we also find out what legal avenues are available to accomplish this in addition to the charter? I mean, is it state law? Is it the legislature has to do it? Are there other avenues where this can be implemented? I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Google, let's add it to your list, okay?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Schmidt.
I was going to ask something very similar to that, because looking at the charter, and that's the very last page where the school board is mentioned, and I'm not really even sure why the school board is in the county charter, because the county commission doesn't have any say-so over the school board. However, the legislature certainly does, and I was curious if we could get something on that, because even with the recall for the county commission, it mentions Florida statute, and that might be, I don't know. But I would like some information on that for the next meeting.
Okay. Mr. Gugelman, did you hear that loud and clear?
We could repeat that in a second.
Ms. Schmidt, if you can repeat that again?
Repeat the whole thing?
Yeah. She just wants clarification on the options on state law and what we can and cannot do.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Tredis.
there is a local bill filed by Randy Fine this session which creates school districts in Brevard County. So I would submit that that would be a reason why the school board can be in the charter and why the people of Brevard County have the authority to make in the charter recall elections. But I'd appreciate if Mr. Gugelman could look into the effect of this local bill, which I am almost certain will pass in the next month. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Any more legal work for Mr. Gugelman? Okay. All right, so obviously our break has served well. We have a lot more issues before us, and I think there'll be a lot more coming our way soon. And again, we want to reiterate that any folks who have some suggestions on how we can improve the county, bring those proposals to us. Melissa's been very organized, and she and Jim have been fantastic getting us information as quickly as possible. And on the two items we handled today, the charter cap and the recall of school board members, just for clear recollection for anyone tuning in now, we have now gone through a public meeting once on the charter cap and 0 times on the school board members' term limits. And again, I think we're going to see some additional proposals, as you've seen through your email, about full-time county commissioners and other items that I think people have been discussing. So are there additional questions? Ms. Tredis, for a question.
I'd just like to point out that the procedure of this commission has a list of what items should be in the agenda. And one of the items that is in the procedure is new business. And that is not in our agenda, but I would like to bring up new business. And the new business, if that's okay with the chair.
Without objection, no problem.
Okay. So the procedure now in Rule 17 provides that for a recommendation or proposal of this commission to pass and go to the county commission needs 10 votes of the commission. And I've looked at the 19 charters of the 19 charter counties in Florida, and very few of them have that 2/3 requirement. Most of them are just a majority. And what I would like to propose, and I'll make a motion shortly, is to reduce that number of votes required for passage from 10 to 8. But really, the main reason I think that it's needed is because 8 is a quorum. So if you think about it, we could go to a vote on all the proposals that are made. Only 8 members show up for a vote, which is a quorum, which means business can be conducted, but no proposal could possibly pass because it takes 10 votes for passage. And I think that is wrong. And I also think the majority should rule. I don't know why it's 10. I think it should be 8. So I make a motion to change Rule 17, Charter Amendment of Rules of Procedure, Brevard County Charter Review Commission, as amended September 23, 2021, to change the number of Charter Review Commission members needed to vote approval of a charter amendment recommendation to be transmitted to the Board of County Commissioners from 10 members to 8 members. I'll second.
All right, so it's the motion's in front of us. Is there discussion on the proposed rule change? Mr. Newman.
I'd like to just, talk about my support on that, because I think that's a great idea. There's a lot of checks and balances that go on with this board that we've kind of discussed with the public here. I mean, not only do we have ourselves and our opinions, who are just a few, but we also have, obviously, the county commission that's going to go through that. And then ultimately, and the most important one, is you folks out in the public that are listening and watching what's going on. So honestly, I think a simple majority is not only more efficient, it also gives a lot more issues the opportunity to shine and allows the people to have their voices heard. So I'm all in on this.
Other opinion, Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, I disagree with that, the motion. When you look at county commission, certain issues require supermajority vote, which is 4 out of the 5. And I think that this charter review committee has some major issues that would affect the citizens and, elected boards for years to come. And so I really believe that treating it as a supermajority it needs to be at that level, just because of the importance of making sure we don't make some decisions that could affect us for years.
Others?
Well,
Mr. White.
just to take exception to what Mr. Fisher was saying is that we're not the final decision-making body here. On a county commission, they're the final decision-making body. The county commission is not even going to be the final decision-maker.
I don't believe you're right on that, Mr. White.
Hold on, let's go one at a time.
Well, in terms of what, yeah, we make a final decision in terms of whether or not we're going to recommend something to the county commission, sure. But then the county commission has to pass it along to the.
They're mandated to, they don't have a choice.
No, I can explain that if I.
Let's go one at a time, because everyone has, we've had a lot of people speak. Mr. Jenkins, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my recollection was that if the Charter Review Commission passes it forward, the county commission has to put it on the ballot unless there's a legal reason not to.
Mr. Lansfeld, do you want to comment on that?
Yes. Whoa. Can I speak?
Oh, hold on a second. Mr. Goodwin, will you please explain that answer so that everyone can then ask questions if necessary, please?
This goes back to the original charter, and basically what it is when this body chooses to forward something, that it needs to be put on the ballot. There was...
Could Paul please go to the microphone so we can hear him? Okay.
I think this will be better. This goes back to the original Charter Commission, and the arrangement is that when the Charter Review Commission recommends something, it's more than just a recommendation. It is something that needs to be put on the ballot. There was some discussion about this. Mr. Fisher had asked regarding term limits, and there was discussion about this back in, I think, 2000, and the issue ended up going to court, and the circuit court decided that in fact is the case. So you all are the final stop. Whatever you come to as your final decision, whether you term it as a recommendation or otherwise, that's what it'll be to go on the ballot.
Mr. Travis, do you want to ask a question of our legal counsel?
Well, 7.4.1 of the county charter says independent review of proposed charter amendments. For any proposed amendment sponsored by the county commission or the charter review commission, the county commission at the county's expense shall impanel a panel of 3 persons to determine whether the proposed amendment and ballot language embraces one subject only and is consistent with the Florida Constitution, general law, and this charter. And then it goes on to say those 3 people are lawyers, and then it goes on to say if 2 of the 3 agree, these lawyers, that it doesn't violate the Constitution or general law, then it goes to the ballot. Are you saying that you agree that this language is in the charter, but it's illegal?
No, I'm not saying that language is necessarily illegal. Maybe, it may be, but that's the next step. Once you make your final decision, it goes to that 3-attorney panel for their review, and if they find it as consistent with general and special law and the Constitution, then it goes on the ballot. And this was specifically the question that was addressed back in 2000. I will also tell you too that language applies to not only the Charter Review Commission determinations, but if the county commission wants to propose something, it has to go through a legal review. So,
Mr. Travis, for a follow-up.
Follow-up is that I've looked at all 19 charters of the charter counties in Florida, and Brevard County is the only county that has this 3-lawyer veto panel in this charter, and I'm going to file a proposal to eliminate this from our charter. It is so undemocratic that 3 lawyers paid by the county commission can prevent a proposal from going to the people after it makes it through all of our process. It's so wrong, it needs to be deleted, and at the next meeting, you'll be able to hear about it. And it's especially offensive to one of my proposals on the charter cap, because the county commissioners are against it. They don't want it to go to the ballot. And for them to be able to hire 3 lawyers, and those 3 lawyers knowing that, well, they know the way their employer wants a vote how to go, conflict of interest too. So you'll see that at the next meeting.
Yes.
And just to clarify, Mr. Kugelman, if this panel should, whether it be 8 votes or 10 votes in the end, should recommend something, it's not a vote by the county commissioners. It's simply to this panel. So the only check on this board potentially would be
That's
those 3
correct.
lawyers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Are there further questions? Mr. Moore.
And I think we're now on 2 separate issues. I think we may ask our legal counsel to go down the road again of a potential memo that addresses the question on the county commission of may versus must. I think the constitutional review of the lawyers is a separate issue from once it reaches the county commission, whether or not their obligation is a may or must in terms of placing it on the ballot. And I think that's what Mr. Gugelman has weighed in on. Secondly, Mr. Tredis, to your point, Mr. Nye and some of us were here on the last go-around. I am not in favor of reducing it to 8. I'm in fact in favor of remaining at 10, or at the very least of 9. As we talked about the majority of the county commission, anything that would require 3 votes, each county commissioner has appointed 3 members to this board, and so to effectively get what would amount to 3 commission districts full of votes, that's at least 9, and we went to that plus 1. And so I certainly would not be of a mindset to going down to something that is less than that particular 9 threshold, particularly if Mr. Gugelman is correct on his may versus must. This becomes the last threshold opportunity, and to me, of something as important of putting it on the charter, at least the total number of representing a minimum of 3 commission districts would be a minimum threshold in my mind, and so I'd be in favor of it remaining at 10, so would not be supportive of what you've placed as a motion on the floor today.
Okay. And again, just to be clear, notwithstanding Mr. Tredis' argument, odds are if it passes our group, whether it be at 8 or 10 votes, this will go to the voters. Let's just be really clear on that. And so what we have is a motion on the floor about moving from 10 to 8. We're not there yet. And I just want to make sure everyone knows we're back. Thank you, Mr. Gogan, for clarifying that for us. So we're back on the motion. The motion is moved from 10 to 8. Are there comments or questions about that move from 10 to 8?
Got a question.
Mr. Fisher for a question.
If you go through this motion and get a vote, do you have to have 10 members approve it?
Well, actually, what I'd like to do, and I think I've said this now 17 times, we're not going to have a vote on anything for at least another couple meetings. I'd like to table this issue for our next meeting so we can think about it a little bit. This is an important decision because I think some people are under the direction that they thought that the county commission would have a check on us, so to speak. They do not. And this is a very serious job of which we're undertaking, and I think people expressed that very well today. So what I'd like to do is to table this motion and going from 10 to 8 so we can think about it. There's not going to be any votes anyway taken on any of the proposals for another 3 to 4 meetings anyway. So why don't we table that for now, if no one objects? And we can continue this discussion in our future meetings, if that's okay with everyone.
Mr. Chairman, if you table this, you need a motion to table because there's a motion on the floor.
Sure. And all those who approve the motion to table say aye.
Nay.
All those say nay. The ayes have it, so it is tabled. Thanks for asking. All right, so we're back on the, what is our next scheduled meeting, Melissa? 10th of March. Bad day for a meeting. Okay, when's our next scheduled meeting after that? Okay. Ms. Schmidt, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to ask if the staff could put some information together for us.
Sure.
I've had some people contact me in regard to charter and non-charter counties on the salary for the county commissioners and for each, and also the budgets and the population for those individual counties, whether they're charter or non-charter, and also the last time the county commission got an increase. That's all. That should take up a week anyway.
All right, we are, is there any other new business, as Blaise brought up? Thanks, Blaise, appreciate that. Other items for new business? All right, so our next scheduled meeting is the 10th of March. Would there be any objection to cancel that meeting, go to the 24th of March? Okay, without objection, let's have our next, we'll cancel the 10th of March, and we'll move, our next scheduled meeting will be the 24th of March. And what time was that at, Melissa?
Hang on one second, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Scrolling.
Believe that's
Scheduled
at
for 1 p.m.
1 p.m., okay. So the 24th of March will be our next meeting at 1 p.m. I think, given the interest that we've provoked today, we'll be using this room, if we could. Okay. And with that, again, next meeting, we will be getting into the second reading of the charter cap. We'll be getting into the first meeting of the recall of school board members and any other proposals that might come in. For those folks who want to get new proposals in, I would recommend you get them in quickly, because that will allow all the members to review those. We can actually take it up in its first reading next time, as opposed to what we had to do today with the school board. And odds are, given the volume of proposals that are coming forth, we would not have this luxury which we had today of taking up the school board issue on reading number 0. So with that, if there are no other business, Mr. Newman moves you rise.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion to adjourn.
Accepted. Have a great day.